Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers kick off the post-All-Star section of the schedule, and Luka Dončić's minutes are going to be going up. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, this one's always going to be free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 32,000 subscribers are all hanging out and getting themselves ready for this last push. Andy, we've talked about it all season long. The stretch following the All-Star break is really difficult for the Lakers. Strength of schedule up there. They just play a lot of Western Conference teams. So that's going to, by definition, make it very hard. But that said, they are also entering this post-All-Star stretch with a significantly better record than I would have thought at 12 games over 500. So a lot to look forward to. Quick reminder, please subscribe not only to YouTube if you happen to be catching us for the first time, but also on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. So the news is it's looking up. You know, there's still some details, Andy, I think, to kind of fill in here, but at practice on Tuesday, JJ Redick said that Luka Dončić's minutes for tonight's game against Charlotte will be higher. And he seemed to be implying that assuming he comes through the Charlotte game okay, the minutes restrictions will basically be coming off.
And this is also coupled with Jaxson Hayes, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Gabe Vincent all being cleared for Wednesday's game. The facial contusion that Jaxson Hayes suffered last week against Utah appears to not be an issue. Hopefully you start seeing Dorian Finney-Smith, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, all of their minutes ramping up as well. Fewer restrictions for any, if not all of them. The only person right now who is in question to play tonight versus Charlotte would be LeBron. Interestingly enough, Mark Williams is probable, to be clear, against the Lakers, not with the Lakers, but against the Lakers. It appears that Charlotte has given up their dream of making the Lakers take Mark Williams, and they are now back to being excited that Mark Williams is returning.
Yes, it is. The stage has been set, Andy, for a Mark Williams revenge game. We're just not sure against whom. We don't know who he's taking revenge on.
I'm just guessing that is one pissed off 7'2" dude, just at everybody. You mentioned too the schedule getting really difficult, which makes it critical that so many players are available and hopefully without restrictions. According to Tankathon, the website that people monitor when their teams are in, say, the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, you're monitoring lottery odds, ping pong balls. Thankfully, none of the Lakers' business this season. According to Tankathon, the Lakers are tied with the Clippers for 5th in strength of schedule. Their remaining opponents have won a collective 53.2% of their games so far this season, and teams 2 through 4 ahead of them have won 53.3. So the Lakers are, and then even the Suns at number 1 are at 54.1. So the Lakers are less than 1 full percentage point away from having the most difficult remaining schedule. So again, very important that guys get back and fingers crossed, stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, look, statistically, there's really no difference between a 541 winning percentage of your teams left in the case of Phoenix, 28 games, and the Lakers with 30 games remaining. Remember, a couple games need to be made up because of the rescheduling following the fires, and 532. Like, there's just not a big difference there. That said, what is both interesting and not surprising about any of this is the top 6 is all Western Conference teams. It's Phoenix, Sacramento, Denver, Memphis, Clippers, the Lakers. You got Utah at 9, New Orleans at 10, Oklahoma City at 13. Teams.
That's great news for Utah and New Orleans.
It is.
It's phenomenal news
about this. Everyone else is sad. but Oklahoma City still has a bunch of their collective winning percentage of games remaining is over 500. It just because to some degree the Lakers and the Clippers play in the same division. It's the way the schedule lays out. It's really of Western Conference teams. It's really only Houston, Dallas, and Golden State that have a noticeable difference. Minnesota as well in terms of their collective winning percentage. But the bottom line is, Andy, if you're going to play a lot of games against the Western Conference, you're going to have a hard schedule. Even a team like Portland, who we had been kind of making fun of earlier in the season because they were losing. They're not losing a lot anymore. Like that,
they won 10 of their last 11 games going into the break.
Yeah, I was about to say they entered the All-Star break as arguably the hottest team in the NBA. Just nobody's paying attention to them because they're still well out of a play-in spot. But it's important that the Lakers built this cushion for themselves well beyond, just to make sure you're in the play-in, which is, for people who may not have been following the Lakers super closely over the last couple of years, has not been a given for them. This idea that, they're a cinch for the top 10. No, no. Well, but this year, they're certainly a cinch for the top 10 and have really given themselves a lot of wiggle room for the top 6 to, navigate a hard schedule, to, get used to these new lineups and all these other things. I don't know how much of that space they'll need, but it's great to know it's there.
Well, remember last year, the Lakers would continually win games and gain no ground in the standings because every team ahead of them kept winning as well, because this is a time where all these teams that have playoff aspirations or are trying to avoid the play-in or trying to get home court advantage. I mean, it's one of the great things about, I think, the play-in concept is if you are a team in that mix at all, unless you are like OKC, that is just so far ahead of everyone else that short of a just massive unforeseen collapse, you are good. Everyone else is going to be in this tight fight for either home court advantage, staying out of the play-in, getting into the play-in. So everybody is completely locked in. And the Lakers, if nothing else, get to be on the other side of that equation where as long as they win games, nobody can catch them. Like they in a lot of ways control their own destiny moving forward as far as just avoiding the play-in. If they win the majority of their games moving forward, they should likely be fine with avoiding it. And we know this because that's what's happened to the Lakers the last couple of years when they couldn't avoid the play-in.
Yeah, and I don't want to frame this like with this cushion, which I think, again, I really think is important and it's well-earned, and the Lakers deserve a lot of credit. They are currently 3 games above Minnesota, who is in the 7 spot. I don't want to frame this with the idea that the Lakers, I'm expecting to backslide. They can certainly, I think, catching Denver, if the Nuggets stay healthy, the way that Denver played going into the break, winning 8 straight, their pedigree as a team, what they've accomplished, the fact that, oh, by the way, the best player on the planet happens to be on their team in Nikola Jokic. I don't necessarily expect the Lakers to catch them, even though they're only 2.5 games behind them. But they could certainly catch Houston, who was really slumping and going in 3-7 into the break. Lakers are a half game behind them for the 4 seed. It is certainly not out of the question that the Lakers could end up with home court advantage in the first round. And even beyond that, if something were to happen to Nikola Jokic, where he missed 2 weeks, and I'm not cheering for that. I'm a huge Jokic fan. I don't like anybody getting hurt. But stuff happens. If the Lakers stay healthy and Denver hits a Jokic injury, the teams, their spot in the standings is not solid either. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm expecting the Lakers to go backwards. It's just there's always more room to go down than there is to go up in the Western Conference.
Just again, the Lakers are situated where if they handle the majority of their business, they should be fine because they're the team being chased as opposed to the team that actually has to make up ground. Perfect world, you'd love for them to pass Denver, get home court, whatever. But as far as the baseline of what they are trying to accomplish, and I think what really matters most is stay out of the play-in. They are not golden, but they've set themselves up well to do it.
And it's as much as anything, that really long break you get while everybody else is in the play-in, you rest LeBron, you rest Luka, you go into the playoffs like that. That's it gives the Lakers a much better chance of winning that opening round than they otherwise, I think, might. What to watch for, Andy, in the second half of the season, the final 30 games? We've each got some ideas of things we're interested in seeing. You've got some numbers. We'll get into all of it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by PrizePicks. Basketball season is heating up. There's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with PrizePicks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love friendly competition, PrizePicks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. And here's how it works. Pick more or less on at least two players to win for a chance to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Let's just say you think LeBron is going to drop more than 30 points in a game, or maybe Luka is going to get more than 9 assists, or Austin Reeves less than 10 rebounds. That would be a lot for Austin Reeves. PrizePicks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. And with PrizePicks flex play option, even if one of the picks doesn't hit, you can still double your money. And if your picks hit, you get your money fast, sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. You can keep any game exciting with PrizePicks. It's the perfect time to join. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. No need to even win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game.
So a reminder, Andy, people can check out the postcast with Dave Palais after every game. If you're new to the channel, now the games are beginning again. After every game, you get not only our show in our regular time, but also Dave Palais with the Locked On Lakers postcast for the channel. So check that out. Also, the Locked On Lakers newsletter. Go to LockedOnDaily.com and click on Locked On Lakers, doing us a solid, and you do yourself a solid, because you get lots of great NBA analysis delivered right to your inbox every day. So we mentioned, LeBron is listed as questionable, participated in most of practice on Tuesday. This is sort of the LeBron world we live in now. He's going to be listed as questionable for most games, I think, going forward.
Well, particularly too, coming off that ankle that prevented him from playing in the All-Star game, and apparently really began hurting a lot more than he expected on Sunday, as opposed to Thursday or Friday when he was closer to having actually played. So I guess it's a little concerning. We'll see where it goes. I mean, this is a situation.
Certainly wouldn't shock. Would it shock you if he missed one of the two games sat in one half of the back-to-back the Lakers got coming up?
No, it wouldn't shock me. I do wish in retrospect that the Lakers had held LeBron out of the Wednesday game versus Utah, because apparently the team was going to phone it in anyway. So you might, if you're going to phone it in, there's really no point to having LeBron play at all. But B, it would have created a lot more, for lack of a better way of putting it, plausible deniability to arrive on a decision of LeBron not playing in that All-Star game, which would have, I think, saved the league, the Lakers, and LeBron quite a headache. And, LeBron's taken a lot of flack over this. You and I have discussed it. I don't think it is deserved. I think you agree. But either way, it's something he's had to deal with that I think would have been easier to set up if he just didn't play in that Wednesday game at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. And we've both talked about we can't have talked about what we did in the first segment about how difficult the conference is, how you need all these games and all that, and then punt away a game against Utah. Like that's
punted it away by playing it.
Right. It's only in hindsight. Had we known that we said that they were going to play as poorly as they did, then you would just if I knew they were going to lose, then we would have absolutely sat LeBron.
Well, lose and not seem interested in trying. It's not the lose part. It's the didn't seem all that interested in playing in the
coupled together. If they had not seemed all that interested and still won, it would have been worth LeBron playing, but they did neither of them. So, but I just, one of the things I wouldn't, Mark Stein reported in his Substack earlier in the week that, there's certainly a possibility that Luka might only play in one half of the back-to-back. But again, with his minutes restrictions lifting or getting lighter after tonight's game, the Lakers are really going to be the team that they are going forward. And one of the things I know I'm interested in is how they distribute. You have, let's say, 20 to 25 minutes a night, it seems like, for Jaxson Hayes. Like, that's about where we're settling. He's playing well there. Maybe it's 15 some nights, maybe it's 25, a little more on it. But broadly, how does JJ sort of juggle and manage the lineup combinations with DFS, Rui, and Vanderbilt in those Hayes minutes? That to me is like that combination of those three guys is one of the kind of the big wild cards, I think, of the rotation going forward with Luka, because so many other things feel kind of intuitive, but that's the part that I'm really interested in part because I think the impact of both Vanderbilt and DFS has been both really strong. And I know you're going to talk about this, but also Rui has really played well. And, he's not done anything to sort of pull himself out of the starting lineup, which is why I think in part it's like a team culture kind of thing, why Redick hasn't gone with the Dorian Finney-Smith as a starter thing, even though a lot of people think it's what they probably should be doing.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've been a proponent of flip-flopping those guys as well, but I've also been thinking about it lately. And given that JJ has often gone with a rotation where DFS coming off the bench has entered the game so quickly, like sometimes 2 to 3 minutes into the start of the first quarter, where you're setting up a scenario where no matter who starts between DFS and Rui, you're going to get the two of them on the court together a lot in a small ball look anyway. I have started to wonder how much it actually matters. I still think if your goal is to balance the lineups better, I still think it makes more sense to start DFS just because it makes more sense. It makes more sense to give Rui more of a featured offensive role because it makes more sense. In terms of the practical impact, though, I am starting to wonder if this is going to be, save, I guess, against, I don't know, two big lineups or Jokic or whatever. If this is going to be the rotation, I'm starting to wonder if it actually matters, even if it makes more sense.
Well, you know how I feel about most of these things. I am more agnostic than a lot of NBA observers, NBA fans, however you want to classify me, about starting versus coming out, like how much it matters necessarily. It's rotations, it's who finishes games, it's all that kind of stuff. So I can see it. And then I think there is an argument to be made that if, at least in some of those moments where you have Luka and LeBron on the floor at the same time, because Rui is a better offensive player overall, I think, than DFS.
There's no question he is.
Yeah. I mean, he is, I think, better able to capitalize on some of the freedom that those two guys create and the attention that those two guys create. Not the DFS is, like Vanderbilt, for example, like still really struggles to finish around the rim and stuff like that. Cuts really nicely, and all that. But, Rui's he can fill a lot he can see it offensively, where to go, how to fill in that and make himself the beneficiary of a lot of that stuff. So I'm interested to see long-term, like what he looks like on the floor with both of those guys in terms of his offensive output. It may not fall as much as you might think just because he's being set up for so many easy shots. But I think your broad point, though, is exactly right. Like, ultimately, it's like, which combinations do you use? How often does Vanderbilt play with Rui? How often does he play with DFS? What are the triggers that get JJ to tweak those things on a night-to-night basis, whether it's offensively, defensively, or whatever. And I know you have numbers about the defense and stuff, and this quote, this idea of small ball, which is essentially what we're talking about here, and kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, we can get into some of those numbers, and in particular, the effect of DFS and Vando with this defense coming up next. Locked On Lakers is brought to you by TurboTax. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes were waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, worrying some more. And now Taxes is matching you with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, do every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. So all you get now is the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com, only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only on iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
So we'll try to get to, before we're done, we'll try to get to the Athletic has another one of these deep dives into Nico Harrison and what happened with the Luka trade. And, obviously Anthony Davis and Max Christie heading back to Dallas, but there's obviously some interesting ties there, both to the Lakers, to Rob Pelinka, and to Kobe Bryant, which we will try to get to before the end of the show. But first, Andy, numbers.
Yeah, the discussion we were having earlier about DFS versus Rui and the point about the substitution patterns, it's the precursor to a lot of small ball that I think everybody's expecting now the Lakers to play, because when they go with a lot of their bigger forwards, LeBron, Rui, Vando, DFS, they maintain a reasonable amount of size. They're not huge the way they often were before, but they're not tiny either. But you're getting just the best players on this team and more of them on the floor. And I saw from Jovan Buha, friend of the show, covers the Lakers for The Athletic, from a recent write-up, quote, Lakers lineups without any of their centers on the floor have outscored opponents by 4.4 points per 100 possessions per cleaning the glass. These lineups with Finney-Smith in the front court have obliterated opponents, outscoring them by 22.7 points per 100 possessions. With Vanderbilt on the floor, they've had similar results, plus 21.1 points per 100 possessions. With both players together, the Lakers have outscored opponents by 17.7 points per 100 possessions. And I took a look at some of DFS and Vando's numbers from there. And DFS, since December 31st, his first game with the Lakers, and obviously DFS has not played in every single one of these games, but just in terms of the overall shifts and effects of him being back. Since December 31st, the Lakers have a 112.3 defensive rating, which would be 6th in the NBA, and a 5.5 net rating as a team. DFS individually, 121.4 offensive rating, 106.2 defensive rating, the best on the team among guys in the rotation. Right. The guys who actually
good. That sounds quite good.
Yeah, the guys who actually matter. DFS has the best defensive rating on the team and a 15.2 net rating. Jared Vanderbilt. Now, this is only a 9-game sample size, but since his return, and again, hasn't played in every single one of these games, but to illustrate it, since Vando has been back for the Lakers, they have a 110.5 defensive rating, 5th in the NBA, a 10.5 net rating as a team. Vando's individual numbers, 123.9 offensive rating, which is pretty amazing for a guy whose offense is fretted over so much. 108.1 defensive rating, 2nd on the team among, again, guys in the rotation who get regular minutes and matter. 15.8 individual net rating. And then of the players firmly in the rotation, Vando leads the team in per 36 minutes for second chance points, deflections, offensive loose balls recovered, defensive loose balls recovered, steals, rebounds per game, and he leads the team in rebounding percentage, period. He's also second on the team behind Jaxson Hayes for screen assists per 36 minutes. And it makes sense that you see this uptick for the Lakers, despite some of the size that you will be giving up. Just in terms of what Vando and DFS, and I think Gabe as well, Gabe Vincent, who's played very well on the whole since, I don't know, the last month and change. Like, but what those two bring is defenders, rebounding with Vando, shooting with DFS. Like, they bring also just energy and hustle and a toughness and an edge. And like, these were things that we talked a lot about being absent from the Lakers earlier in the season and not really being part of the collective makeup of this team. Like, not that those guys didn't want to win, but LeBron, AD, Reeves, Rui, like, that's not really how those guys, D'Lo when he was with the team, that's not really their wiring. And, you know, that doesn't mean that it's all bad. You know, their wiring brings a lot of good things too, but they're not wired like dogs that way. You know what I mean? And the guys that I'm talking about, DFS, Vando, Gabe, I think Jaxson kind of in his own right in terms of the energy, like, it's more of like a dog mentality. And you balance that with the other guys there, and all of a sudden you start looking like a team that's kind of a more balanced personality as a collective. And that I think seeps into the defense and the effectiveness of it, and the desire of it.
I think that's true. I think also it's true that, you know, Lord knows we've spent 18 months talking about how important Jared Vanderbilt is to this team, based on how they're put together. You know, Gabe Vincent with, you know, the defensive capabilities he brings to the backcourt, how important that has, you know, missing that has been, especially now that he actually is a viable offensive player too. I mean, like, it really can't be, you know, overstated how important the resurrection of Gabe Vincent has been as part of this team's turnaround. Yep. It's been, you know, not necessarily a huge talking point, but incredibly important. And then you add DFS, and is both, you know, both of us, you know, still got our D'Lo Island real estate, but you're changing the sort of the not just attitudinally the team, but the skill set, and you're slotting guys in better spots. Now DFS does work that Reeves used to have to do. And, you know, Vanderbilt can do stuff that sometimes you had to rely on Rui to do, and he's not as effective as that. Like, you can just knock guys down into much better and more comfortable positions that they can use. And then, and they may not have known it at the time, but now you're actually in a decent position to play quote unquote small, because your smallest guy on the floor pretty much at all times, unless Gabe is playing, who plays a little bigger defensively, is 6'5". In terms of like his aggressiveness, he's a strong player. I'm not saying he guards up. I'm just saying,
okay. It's one of the. I mean, Gabe has been targeted at times because of that size.
Right. You can go over him. He's not like a jumpy whatever 6'5", but like he's a strong player. He plays really hard.
Yes.
And you know, you can. He's not like every 6'2", if he really is that player around or whatever he is. But for the most part, he's the only member of the rotation who is under 6'5".
Yeah.
So the Lakers are not small. They've actually got a ton of size. They just don't have centers. That's not the same thing.
Well, and they're not over. They used to be, I mean, forget the 2020 championship team, but like this year's version earlier on with Anthony Davis, with Max Christie, like depending on some of the lineups he had out there, like you could overwhelm with size, like a group of AD, LeBron, Rui, Max, and Austin. That's a pretty big lineup. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it may not be LeBron, AD, Dwight, you know, like 2020, or like even some of the lineups with Kobe Powell, with, you know, Andrew Bynum and Lamar Odom and Artest or whatever, but that's good size. It's not overwhelming, but it's not bad size either. And I think sometimes, especially on a team where we've been hearing for so many years, Anthony Davis agitating either openly or, through media sources, whatever, his desire for another center on this team, not even just because he wants the Lakers to have more center options, but just he wants to play power forward. Like, I think it's sometimes led the team to be seen as smaller than they actually are. Again, we've said before, the center depth on this team is an issue. We're not trying to gloss over it. I just think there's a difference between lacking center depth and being small. Right. I don't consider the Lakers a small team.
And I think, you talked about Rui, like those lineups before were big. Rui's a big guy, but he doesn't defend big in that way. He is easy to lose over screens. He's not a great rebounder.
Small.
Just doesn't defend. He's not a He's not a bruising rebounder. And I'm not trying to.
But he can overwhelm you offensively with his size.
No question. I'm not trying to crush Rui here. Sure, I think he is trying. And I think half of this is effort. Like, it's effort. And what are you being asked to do? Are you being asked to do things that, like Rui's a great athlete. Like, he seems willing. Like, it would be better if he were better at defense. But NBA defense especially is intuitive. It's instinctive. And there's certain, like, I don't think like I could follow. If you're a tenth of a second behind something, or you don't see it coming, you miss a rotation, or your judgment's just slightly off, your wrong angle. There are so many ways to screw up NBA defense that, I think the baseline is he working as hard as he can to try and do what the coaching staff is asking to do? And I think for the answer is, for the most part, yes. And now the Lakers have a couple more ingredients that will make it easier for him to defend as well as he is able to. And I think the same thing applies to Reeves, because his responsibility is going to be lessened theoretically now on both ends. And he can get targeted, but Reeves is a willing defender. It's not that he doesn't try. That's never been an issue with AR on defense. So I'm much more optimistic about their ability, even factoring in, Luka's not an ideal defender, and you got the LeBron issues and all that kind of stuff. I am actually relatively bullish on their ability to play defense over these final 30 games pretty effectively.
LeBron doesn't concern me, assuming he's healthy, because we've already seen him ramping it up. And we've seen enough reminders that when LeBron is locked in defensively, is he at the level that he was when he was peak LeBron and like an all defense caliber player? No, but LeBron can lock in now, health assumed, to a point where he is at worst a defensive neutral, if not, I think, often a positive defender.
And it was the health thing that I was referring to.
Luka's the real wild card to me, in part because he's never been a particularly good defender. There have been times, we talked with Nick Angstadt, who covers the Mavs for part of the network, and he said, like, there can be certain, particularly like one-on-one matchups, like where Luka can be okay. A lot of his either team concepts, his closeouts against this, particularly the second game in Utah. I am really hoping that was rust, because they were alarmingly slow, and they did not look like it was because Luka wasn't attentive. It looked like they were just slow. He's also the wild card because we haven't seen really what JJ is going to do with him. And like how he plans on, at best, utilizing him defensively, at worst, offsetting him defensively. But
the idea that, Luka, you can't have a good defense with Luka on the team. Well, check Dallas last year.
Well, that's not a great example, because they had way more good defenders on that team.
Sure, my point is, I think the Lakers actually are better constructed now to have some of that. I'm not saying they're on the same level as some of the guys in Dallas, but I'm just saying it's like Luka Dončić has been on good teams, teams that played good defense. And so is he the reason that happens? He is not, but he is also a reason that the offense could be better, which makes the defense better, all these other things. And so I, at the very least, am adopting a wait and see attitude. You guys will have to wait and see our thoughts on this Nico Harrison, Rob Pelinka, Kobe Bryant through line that was part of this trade. It's a really fascinating thing I think from a Laker fan's standpoint that we will try to get into over the course of the week. But in the meantime, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 32,000 subscribers. We'll be back after the game. Sign up for the newsletter. See everyone later.